Well, good morning, everyone. And as we start off this week's forecast videos, we're really going to focus here on who's going to be getting a lot of rainfall and who's going to be dealing with a lot of oppressive heat. The map you've been looking at here shows you the last 72 hours of total accumulated precipitation through 8 a.m. Central Time this morning. We can see that over the last 3 days, there's been heavy rainfall through the Appalachian Mountains, throughout the Ohio River Valley, also this part of the mid-Mississippi River Valley, and then throughout New England, where throughout so much of this summer we've seen drought developing in this particular area. So for a lot of folks, it's going to feel as though the drought broke here on flooding rains. But the heat is going to be a main story again this week as a large ridge just continues to sit across the western United States. But the pattern is open and moving, and what we're going to be watching here overall is how that heat moves east, but we're going to see fronts sliding through the midsection of the country. But just looking at the latest all hazards weather map, we still have flood watches that are in place throughout parts of the Northeast, but excessive heat warnings, heat advisories, and red flag warnings through a large section here of the western part of the United States. These areas tucked in between are having some dense morning fog. I was just watching again the satellite imagery from last night. Let me take you back there. And you can see the extent of the wildfire smoke throughout the western part of the United States. And again, this has been borne on very high evaporation rates, some stronger winds, and also temperatures that have topped 110 degrees Fahrenheit in California and 100 degree Fahrenheit weather throughout much of the rest of the Pacific Northwest. When looking here at where that smoke is forecast to go over the next 48 hours, this is from the high-resolution rapid refresh model. It is showing the vertically integrated smoke, and you can see the smoke just getting pulled around that large ridge that is in place throughout the west. But this pattern does kind of have an expiration date on it, and I want to talk about that as we go through this forecast. First, though, we still have to deal with that heat. So here's today's high temperatures. Again, look at these Central Valley, California temperatures, Snake River Valley, all the way here in parts of Wyoming and then into Nebraska. The heat stays on and really builds into this region here on Tuesday. Triple-digit heat in Montana, stretching down in here into the western plains, but it is still hot in the California Central Valley. We then go out there toward Thursday, and this is where the first change begins to show up. Notice that as we get into Friday, a pretty vigorous front comes through. This is that system we talked about all last week coming through on the 9th. Well, that front's finally here. What's going to be interesting about this front that slides through here is how it's going to be interacting with an upper level low that's cut off from the main flow here. That's really going to take more of the moisture and push it east, limiting the moisture that will be along this front, which we were hoping could deliver some decent end of season rains for a lot of folks in the Midwest. But this is Friday's high temperatures getting into Saturday, so that means we could have up to a 30, maybe 35 degree swing in temperatures here, just from high temperatures from the beginning of this week to the end. You do notice that once we get into Saturday and Sunday, the heat tries to go back up the west coast, but note this. See the cooler conditions coming in here toward the end of next week? This is that pattern shift. Well, this is the pattern disrupting thing that I'm talking about. It's K. We have a tropical system, a hurricane that could be moving along the Baja and may end up with its main moisture plume here or maybe a little bit farther to the west of here. Regardless, we could get cloud cover in this area from K, and that's going to help kind of pull back on these very high temperatures. As the ridge still sits over the west, it's going to be cloud cover that kind of keeps that possibly in place. Now, with that cold front coming through the midsection of the country, it's that time of year where we have to be on the lookout for frost. So I do want to show you the overnight lows. This is this morning's lows. Let's get into Wednesday morning lows. Thursday morning lows. Watch the temperature change here. Ready? Thursday morning lows into Friday and into Saturday and Sunday. So now we're talking about by Sunday morning, overnight lows in the mid-40s in this area. No early concern of frost at this point, and after this front goes through, we do see a bit of a rebound in those temperatures. So we'll keep an eye on this, but I just wanted to bring you up to speed on those latest temperature forecasts. All right, let's get into the longer range outlook for precipitation over the next couple of weeks. Our first map here shows the WPC. This is a National Weather Service product looking at the next 7 days of total accumulated precipitation. So K is coming here, but then possibly moving out to open ocean. But notice this rainfall is from K. We then have a front that we're going to see on Thursday into Friday sag right in through here. It's been limited on its moisture now, so you notice how we're not looking at heavier rainfall as we had anticipated in this area. And that's due to this upper level low that's going to start here and then move its way very slowly as it's cut off from the main flow over the Ohio River Valley. So on the eastern side of it, it's going to be drawing a lot of moisture up, and we could see some heavier rains in this area. The probability of getting at least an inch of rain over the next 10 days here is high. It's almost 100% given this upper level low and what we've got going on there right now. So over the next 10 days, you see this corridor in between that does stay drier. Here's where the front kind of sags through later this week, delivering some moisture. It's limited, but some moisture there. And then you can see the main track of K, but the moisture plume from K moving into California, Nevada, and parts of Arizona. But with that upper level low sitting right here, you can notice how much moisture is getting pulled out ahead of this going forward into this weekend and early next week. So this is a 10-day precipitation anomaly map. I keep talking about these tropical systems. Let me bring you up to speed because we also have Hurricane Earl, well, soon to be Hurricane Earl over here. It's currently a tropical storm, but the forecasts are for it to become a hurricane and possibly a major hurricane moving over the extremely warm water that is in place here for this time of year. So that could be the fuel needed to make this into a major hurricane. But let's come back here, and I want to talk about the East Pacific and talk about K. So the latest forecast update for K, as you can see, is hurricane strength before making this turn after going over the Baja. It'll just be important to watch all week how far to the north that moisture gets, because that could really deliver some needed rains into California and Arizona and even farther to the north. So let's stitch all of those things together and look at the latest European run. So as we work our way through today, a lot of scattered storms from New England, where the heavy rain continues today, down to the lower Mississippi River Valley and all points in between. As we then get into Wednesday and then Thursday, while high pressure moves through the midsection of the country, here's that low that's going to drag that front. See it there? This is Thursday night, right through the upper Midwest, pushing here into Montana. That front by Friday morning slides farther, and it's here by Saturday morning. Now, let's point out the main features. There's K. Here's our front we discussed, and the upper level low is sitting here. Now, K just meanders, it's a little too far, meanders like this, pulling in some moisture. But watch this front sag farther to the south and interact with this low. What we're going to get here by Sunday into Monday is a large area stretching from the lower Mississippi River Valley over toward the southeast, clear up to the Great Lakes, that could see a large plume of moisture coming out of the tropics that really just gets pulled into New England early next week. So that's the main factors that we're looking for here over the next 7 days. Going into week 2, this is where the model pattern change I discussed at the beginning possibly shows up. A trough along the west coast, more ridging in the central United States, and then a trough over the east. So what we end up getting here, maybe some better moisture coming into the Intermountain West, but drier here. All right, that seems to be the forecast overall going into week 2, which gets us up to September 20th. Let's finish this up talking about temperatures. We're going to watch here a 5-day sliding window of temperatures through the cooler air that comes in this weekend into early next week. But you'll notice it's not really connected to too much deep cold air that's in place here. So we rebound throughout the Canadian prairie, and the cooler conditions you see here in the longer range forecast out to day 10 to 12 is just cloud cover driven. This is all driven by cloud cover. The pattern shift in the west shows up right about here at the end of the forecast. So what you've got here is from that trough of low pressure that could be coming in across the western United States. One last thing to point out, there's another tropical system I'm keeping an eye on. A lot of us are. It's coming off the west coast of Africa now. Might take about 10 days to get here, just to the east of the Lesser Antilles. But at that point, most of the model forecast runs take it north, but you can see some clustering here pulling it farther to the east. This will likely be the next big system we'll be discussing. So we'll leave it off there. I'll talk to you again tomorrow morning. Until then, have a good day. Thanks.